Okay, I'm Gerry Anderson. People are forever asking me, how did you come to make super marionation pictures? There were some pretty awful puppet films being made for kids to watch. And so in order to push these other people aside, I decided I would take the word super, marionette, and animation and bind them together to call it super marionation.
4.
I started my career in the film industry as a sound editor. But I guess I must have been very ambitious because I got together with a few friends and we created our own production company. Now, at that time, there were 5 of us and we came to work every day and did absolutely nothing, waiting for somebody to arrive and say the magic words, I want you to make a commercial or whatever.
Well, Father?
You'll have to make a decision soon, Dad.
But then a magic thing happened. A woman arrived one day and she said, in my bag, I've got 52 15-minute scripts for a television series. So my heart started to thump immediately.
It is perhaps the most exciting moment in the history of our company.
And then she said, it's a series for children. I thought, well, that's fine. And it's to be made using puppets. I nearly spewed all over the floor. So we shot the first series, which was called The Adventures of Twizzle. And I was absolutely ashamed about what we were doing, but apparently it went down well with the Kiddie Winkies. So we were asked to make a new series called Torchy the Battery Boy.
Torchy the little battery boy, I'm a clever walkie-talkie toy.
The series was this time very successful, and we got the front page of the TV Times. Well, of course, you know, I thought, right, this is it. Once the studios and the financiers see this, they're going to say, hey, look, this guy's wasting his time. Let's give him a live action show, for God's sake.
They're all going out tonight to celebrate.
Well, that's not what happened.
Just my luck.
They said, this guy makes bloody good puppet films. We ought to give him some more. And so I was trapped. I was typecast.
Well, all you need to know right now is that everything is okay.
If that's what we had to do, I wanted to make them as good as possible.
3.
Right from the very start, we used to pre-record the dialogue of each show. And the puppeteers would mime their puppets to the dialogue. Now, if the puppeteers wanted to open the mouth of one of their puppets, then she would have to tug very hard, and with fast dialogue, the puppet's head was speaking like this, all of them.
I didn't know this was your house. I thought it was a dog kennel.
I thought, oh, you know, that's terrible.
How funny.
What we did, in terms of simplicity, was to put an electromagnet in the head of the puppet, and there was a metal arm inside the head with a rod going through that way, so it could move like that. But in order to make it move like that, we had to have a coil here, so that when the electricity ran through it, it would pull the mouth open, and when the electricity was not running, the return spring would close it.
I don't get it, Brains. What's the point?
This is the point.
When a peak comes, the current flowed, the magnet inside became active, mouth opened. When the peak passed, current was switched off automatically and the mouth closed. So we called it electronic lip sync, and it was really 90% efficient.
Well, it's certainly ingenious, Brains.
It was quicker, and of course we didn't have the terrible nodding of the head, but we still had these goddamn ropes. And so I got in touch with the company that made wire. And we asked them if they could develop a very, very thin wire that would be strong enough to hold the weight of a puppet. And they came up with a very fine wire. If anything was, the metal was bright colour, and of course it caught the lights, and every now and again it would flare out. So we asked the manufacturers if they could blacken the wire somehow so it didn't increase the thickness. And they did just that. And I said, how on earth did you do that? And they said, don't be a damn fool, I'm not going to tell you. Now you'll have to get all your wire from us, won't you?
2.
Then Frank Green came in and said, I've made an appointment with you for a man called Lou Grade. He's shortly going to be the chairman of Associated Television, and he's looking for product, and he's agreed to see you. Well, I was absolutely trembling with nerves, and Reg Hill, wonderful partner I had, artist, engineer, had made a little brochure for a show called Supercar. And I took it along to Lou and sat in front of this enormous desk, and he said, how much is this going to cost? He said, looking at the brochure. I said, well, £3,000 an episode. And he clenched his fist and he thumped the desk. I thought he was going to break it in two. And he said, that's absolutely ridiculous. I can't pay that sort of money for this show. He said, look, the time's 5 o'clock. Go home and come here 7:30 tomorrow morning and tell me that you cut the price in half. And if you've succeeded, I will give you an immediate contract for 26 pictures. Well, I drove back like a madman, told my partners, and they said, oh, Gerry must be mad, but you know, can't cut the budget in half. So, okay, we stayed up all night, said that there's no way we can cut it any further, so we've had it. So, 7:30 in the morning, I walked into Lou's office, sweat pouring down my brow, smelling like a polecat, unshaven, and he sat back in his big chair and he said, well? And I said, Mr. Grade, we've been up all night and we've tried to cut everything in sight. We cannot cut it in half, but the most we can cut it is 1/3. He said, okay, you got a deal.
Well, you made your decision.
Yes, I only hope it was the right one.
He knew damn well we couldn't cut the budget in half. He also could see in my eyes that I was very passionate about doing it. So, cut it in half. Oh, you can't cut it in half, but you cut off 1/3. Okay, you got a deal. I mean, that's the way he operated, and it was absolutely marvellous.
1.
I had this idea of a rescue unit. We were making Stingray at the time, getting towards the end, and I got this famous call from Lou. Gerry, can you come in 7:30 tomorrow morning and tell me what you're going to do next? So I arrived in his office 7:30 in the morning, and he gave me one of his cigars. He leaned back in his chair and said, right, what's the next idea? So I said, well, Lou, I have got an idea, but I'm not sure that you'd want to back this one. For some unaccountable reason, he came rushing round the desk and he grabbed me by the scruff of the neck and he dragged me into the centre of his office and he said, look, he said, can you see that light bulb? You know, so I said, yes. He said, Gerry, if you want to make a television series about that light bulb, I'll back it. Now come and sit down and tell me what the idea is.
You old son of a gun. I'll buy it.
I explained it was about an international rescue organisation. I'd written the first script, which, when I say designed in words, what all the craft were, how big they were, what they were supposed to do. And then that went to the late Derek Meddings, and he would take my brief, which in no way was a design. You know, for example, I would say, Thunderbird 1, I had this idea of it coming out of the swimming pool. said to this needs to be a giant transporter capable of carrying very heavy loads, and it must exceed the speed of sound and may be able to fly 40 miles up or whatever. And he would then set to design it. It started his life as a half-hour show. We were shooting episode 9, by which time episode 1 had been cut, and now was the time to show it to Lou Grade.
This project has been the most costly yet devised by man. Okay, away you go, and good luck.
So he sat next to me, and I daren't look at him. I didn't want him to think I was watching his reactions. And the film went through, lights went up, and he got up in his chair and he walked all the way down to the screen. And he turned on me like a dancer. Well, of course, he was a dancer. He was the Charleston champion of the world. So he spun round and he said, "Thank you, this is not a television show." But I nearly had a heart attack. So there was a long pause. He said, "Gerry, this is a feature film." Wow.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your unanimous support.
Shook hands, shut the door, and went, "Wow!"
Thunderbirds are go.
And now, by the courtesy of the New World Aircraft Corporation, you rang, milady?
When we started to make Thunderbirds, we had this character, Penelope's chauffeur, called Parker. And Parker was sculpted by a puppeteer called John Blundell. And it was a wonderful, wonderful face. It really was. And I thought, this character's got to have a really good voice to match.
All the baggage is aboard, milady.
Thank you, Parker.
We used to go to a very, very lovely pub in Cookham-on-Thames for lunch. And they had an English restaurant serving English food, but beautiful. And they had a waiter with his little white coat.
Now, milady, what will it be?
I think this occasion calls for champagne all round, Parker.
And he had this wonderful patter of talking like a Cockney, which I think he probably originally was, but trying to talk like a toff.
This is what I call driving in style, milady.
And what I did was, I thought, that's the voice we want. So we sent David Graham, the voice artist who was going to do the voice of Parker, down to the King's Arms every day for lunch, on the company, of course. And he came back with a perfect copy of Parker's voice.
Oh, I think it's very elegant, milady.
We had a special meeting to say, what are we going to do about Arthur? Shall we tell Arthur that he really is the voice of Parker?
I thought it was too good to be true, milady.
We didn't tell him. And he went to his grave, never knowing that he influenced Parker.
Bon voyage.
Bon voyage.
Bon voyage.
Bon voyage, milady.